It has been almost 2 years since Victoria 3 initially released in October of 2022, and in that time, various updates, whether they be free or DLC patches, have been released for the game. But now, the biggest and most important DLC in expansion is coming with Sphere of Influence and patch 1.7. Today, I want to go through my thoughts on Sphere of Influence and whether I think you should buy it or not. Looking at the history of Victoria 3's development, I've been generally receptive to the game adding in more flavor related to certain regions and trying to add new mechanics. That being said, for the longest time, I've felt that Victoria 3 was really missing some diplomatic weight and interactions. Luckily, that's where Sphere of Influence steps in, and I feel that it does make the game better substantially. There still is a question on if the DLC will be worth the $30 price, even if it does make the game better. I think the short answer to that question is yes, but I think it really does depend on certain factors and your individual preferences. To start off with, Sphere of Influence adds some cool new features that I think all players could appreciate. These include Power Blocs, which are multinational associations that allow you to push your identity and principles on other nations, with examples being trade leagues, sovereign empires, ideological unions, military treaties, and religious convocation. I really have appreciated this feature, as I feel it will allow you to shape the world, whether through single player or multiplayer, to how you see fit, and better interact with the world in unique and nuanced ways. The next major feature they added are political lobbies. These groups form when certain events take place that cause your nation to either like or dislike a nation, or like or dislike your overlord. For example, declaring rivals, diplomatic plays, or revolutions can cause these to form. This is another great feature that I think really expands on how diplomacy and nation building works. You can see what your individual pops feel about other nations, and you can then decide if you want to follow how they feel or play dictatorially or your own style. Obviously, disagreeing with your pops can cause them to become more radical and eventually lead them to fight back against your regime. A third major feature in Sphere of Influence is subject interactions. This update allows you to interact with your subjects or your overlord in a significantly more nuanced way. Some of the features that are related to subject interactions have been included in the free 1.7 patch, such as increasing or decreasing autonomy, granting market independence, liberty desire, and more. But other things, such as knowledge sharing to increase their technology and supporting your regime, are only available via the DLC. Another feature that is mixed Sphere of Influence and 1.7 is foreign investments. If you don't own the DLC, you'll still be able to invest only in your subjects, but if you do get Sphere of Influence, you will be able to invest in all nations around the world. Foreign investments do tie to a free feature, part of the 1.7 patch, which is the building ownership revision. This divides up how buildings are owned between the workforce, privately owned, and the state. These divisions help decide where profits go, how they are controlled by the state, and more. Finally, a Sphere of Influence only update will be The Great Game. This maps out the historical race for Central Asia and will pin Russia, Great Britain, and Persia, plus the indigenous peoples there, in the conquest and protecting of these regions. As with Voice of the People and Colossus of the South, I do appreciate flavors in individual regions, and I do think journal entries and objectives related to this will really flesh out the game. When looking at all those features, I do think they're important, but does that justify the $30 price tag? I think there are mods that have emulated a lot of these flavors to a good degree. These include politics mods, subject interaction mods, and flavor mods. That being said, I do feel that these features in Sphere of Influence are very well fleshed out, and I think for most players, they will appreciate playing the game as Paradox intended it. I think generally, if you play Victoria 3 a lot, you will enjoy Sphere of Influence and you should buy it, and you will be constantly interacting with the world with Sphere of Influence features, even if many of those features should have been included in the base game or should have been given for free. For me personally, the most interesting part of Victoria 3 was always the political/diplomatic side, and I really do think that Paradox has succeeded here with Sphere of Influence. Therefore, it depends on your needs and your wants. If you play Victoria 3 a lot, you should get Sphere of Influence. If you play multiplayer and you don't really need to play so much single player, you probably don't need to get it. And if you're unsure if it's really worth it, I would wait a little to save up some money or wait up until there's a sale. Overall, I really do appreciate the DLC and I think you should buy it. Sincerely, Wonder Productions.